my fellow Americans. If you think you know politics, think again. I'm Michael Cohen, and every week on When You Know, we're pulling back the curtain on power, politics, media, and the people making headlines. On my new WABC radio show, you'll hear conversations from names that you know. People like Jerry Falwell Jr., Anthony Scaramucci, Alan Dershowitz, and many, many more. Maybe, just maybe, we'll even hear from the president. No scripts, no spin, just real conversations with people who were in the room where it happened. And trust me, we've got some very big surprises coming. Look, I've spent years at the center of politics, controversy, and power. I know the players, I know the stories, and now I'm bringing you inside. When You Know, Sundays at 5 p.m. on WABC Radio, and When You Know Unleashed, wherever you get your podcasts. Because with me, you never know who's going to show up.
This is the Cats Roundtable with John Catsimatidis.
Everywhere around the world, they come into America. Every time that flag's unfurled, they come into America.
Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here. We have a great show for you again today. We have Lynn Shaw, who's protecting our kids. Dr. Peter Michalos, live long and prosper. The Republican National Chairman, Joe Gruder. Ambassador Michael Oren, calling in from Israel. Bob Steele from the state of Michigan. Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana. Gordon Chang, what's going on in the Far East. Eric Grossman from the state of Colorado. And let's start off with our new host, Michael Cohen. With us today is Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen, tonight is your preview on your show on your own. So talk to us about it.
You know, it's called When You Know, because unfortunately there's so much misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation out there. And yeah, John, I'm extremely thankful to you and actually the president for blessing this union here where I'll be able to get my voice out there in order to provide facts for what's going on.
You talk about AI. A funny thing happened a couple of days ago. The Europeans and the Greeks, they were so mad that the possibility of the president giving F-35s to Ankara, that they created an AI of President Clinton criticizing President Trump. President Clinton would never do that. I sent him the copy of the AI thing that Greece, some Greek politician or Greek reporter put out, and he says, that's not me. It's fake news.
It's unbelievable. If you think about it, John, only you would be texting with President Clinton, asking him, is it possible that this is true? Where President Clinton then responds back, this is a deep fake AI. He goes, they're incredible what they can do these days.
It's incredible. And the problem is, it's not only us, and we're adults. Kids, 17-year-olds that don't realize what's going on in the world are believers. And is it possible that's how the democratic socialist movement has moved forward?
That's a whole nother story. Many things are leading to the rise in democratic socialism, much of which is Gen Z, that are being promised things that cannot possibly legitimately occur. When you hear somebody like Mondani turn around saying free housing, free busing, free food, anytime that government sticks their nose into, we'll call it private industry, it fails. It fails miserably. There's fraud, waste, and abuse. Bar none.
You know, I went on Fox last week, and I said, instead of having 5 stores that they're going to spend $70 million on, maybe they should spread among all the supermarkets, all the bodegas, and I said to them, maybe if you want them to reduce the price of eggs, or maybe you want them to reduce the price of bread, if you're going to reduce the price of eggs for $1, maybe you give them $1 credit off their real estate taxes.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? Instead of wasting $70 million that cannot possibly work. It is fundamentally impossible for government to be in this business. Instead of them doing that, why don't they give me $70 million and I'll go build for them 500 apartments in New York City, because that's another promise
I gave him a better deal. I said, for $70 million, I'll build you 10 stores, 15 stores instead of 5, and in 6 months, not in 6 years, and not in 3 years, not in 4 years.
They take that $70 million, someone's already in government thinking how they're going to whack it up for their own pocket.
Now, you have a 5 o'clock show tonight.
I do.
And tell us what you're going to talk about, and tell us what your mission is. Eventually, you want a Monday through Friday show. I understand that. But tell us what your mission is to tell people and to disclose to people and to bring people to light.
So I want people to understand that I play what I call center aisle, because I'm slightly left of center. I always have been. I'm a fiscal conservative and a social moderate. I'm not here to turn around and to play one side or the other. That's why my first guest is going to be Anthony Scaramucci. My second guest is going to be Jerry Falwell Jr. I want people to understand the president. I want people to understand that not every single thing that he does is either right or fundamentally wrong. There's somewhere in between. There can be two truths. Both things can be right at the same time. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. And whether you agree with the president on an issue or you don't, I want people to understand we can have our conversation about it, but the agenda for the United States is set not by you, not by me, not by the listeners, but by the President of the United States, who was elected to do a job. Now, we all have the right to agree or to criticize, but that agenda, again, belongs to the administration. I want to give a different type of a perspective in hopes that people get an idea from a centrist point of view.
Now, you worked with President Trump when he was running for. He thought of running for governor, then he wanted to run for president, and you were running the campaign for a while, and also you were doing some of his other stuffs, litigations, and.
So I was brought on in 2007. So yes, in 2011, it all started with one piece of paper where people said that 5% actually said that they would like to see Trump run for the presidency. I brought it to his attention. He told me to look at it. The campaign consisted in 2011 and then at the beginning of 2015, the campaign consisted of two people, Donald Trump and me.
Well, I look forward to listening to you at 5 o'clock on your iPhone, 77 WABC app, and on your computer, WABCRadio.com. And thank you so much.
Amen to that.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us is the chairman of the National GOP, Joe Gruder. Mr. Chairman, tell me some key states of what the heck is going on.
Well, what's crazy is what's happened in Maine this past week. I mean, who could have ever imagined that 74% of the Democrats, knowing everything that they knew about Plattner and nominated him to be their nominee, would end up dropping out. And he didn't drop out because of these recent allegations. He was already accused of sexual assault. They dropped him because he couldn't win. Plattner was a loser. He had so much stuff on him, people couldn't even believe it. But, Susan Collins is in great shape there. And if you look around some of these other Senate seats, look at Mike Rogers of Michigan, just a phenomenal candidate, probably your best chance of picking up a seat in the U.S. Senate. Really working hard, and he's going against his socialist El Said, and all these guys are crazy.
Yeah, how can Michigan vote for this guy El Said?
Well, listen, he just, he said that he's not a socialist, that he supports law enforcement, but then they bring out 5 videos where he said he wants to defund the police. This happens over and over again. They want boys and girls locker rooms. They want open borders. They want the craziness just goes on and on and on. And but listen, they're giving us the matchups we want for these U.S. Senate races, and it doesn't end there. I mean, you look at some of these other races in Iowa, Florida, Georgia, we have a real opportunity not only to win the Senate, but to hold the House. And, only 4 times in the last 150 years has the incumbent party been able to defy history. We have everything we need right now to do that in this November. We just got to come together and make sure that everybody works hard to support the president.
The president tweeted out last week, 278 Americans have died since the Iran situation begun. And he just wants to point out that young kids in Chicago, in Illinois, are dying, and he's willing to help, get rid of the dying. And the governor there, Pritzker, is not allowing them to come in to fix the problem in Chicago.
And Pritzker's protected by security guards with guns, and he lives behind a gated community and a wall where these kids are getting killed. It's crazy that when they talk about the Iran conflict, that more people have died in Chicago this year. The crazy thing is this president wants to help every American, regardless of race, regardless of your background.
He went down to New Orleans and helped the problem there. He went to Tennessee. He went to Knoxville.
Yes, look at D.C. Look at the difference. It used to be, we had. I was talking when I first became chairman. We had a couple of our workers that were mugged going back and forth from home who lived nearby. Now you could walk there at night. Everybody feels safe. And that's, at the end of the day, that's why I think people are attracted to the president, because people want safe neighborhoods. Because everybody wants they want their children to be able to have a chance at a life and opportunities that they either had or they want them to receive more. And this president's literally giving that to them, and the left wants to take it away. The left wants to take away your ability to achieve the American dream. They're pushing these socialist lunatics at all levels of government, and it's the American people. And listen, you saw what they did under Biden. They let 20 million illegals in. They want to do it because they're fundamentally trying to change the country. They want America to be beholden to these foreigners, and that's when these communists, and they think everything's is free. Who's going to pay for all this stuff? That's why the Democrat Party, I think, long term and even short term, I think they're in a death spiral. I think they're going to have a hard time, and I think that they're going to have a hard time pulling their nose up, because once we win November and defy history, then we win the 2028 presidential race, and we go into the census, and we only count Americans. The shift in the balance of power in Congress is going to move quite rapidly. And I don't think the Democrats will ever be able to get underneath the DSA leadership.
Has the Supreme Court done anything about the migrants being counted in the census yet?
They have not yet, but I wish they would. But I think during the next census, assuming that we're in control, that we win the next presidential cycle, we'll get the right count in place to make sure that that only Americans are counted in basic common sense things like
everybody was trying to figure out why Biden's administration. I'm not going to blame Joe Biden. I don't think he knew what he was doing or what was happening. But somebody around him, somebody has to go to jail because somebody was faking the whole thing in the White House. But they let in 10 or 20 million migrants in to be able to boost up the census in the blue states to get more Congress people.
That's exactly right. And listen, it's because the Democrats will stop at nothing to make sure that they control and that they have power and control. That's why we're suing these guys.
What did the president say? The power in the Democratic Party is worth more to them than the country.
100%. And that's why they're willing to cheat every single day. We're suing these guys. We're being proactive. 150 active lawsuits right now, 180 just in the last year alone. We're going to make sure we hold these guys accountable, and we're getting some real favorable verdicts at every level of the judiciary, and we're going to continue to work hard to make sure.
What are we going to do about some of these judges that are being federal judges that are being more political than what they're supposed to be?
Listen, I hope that they get impeached, and I think you've heard some members of the legislature basically come out and say that they need to hold some of these judges accountable, and I hope it happens. Because at the end of the day, their job is not to create laws, to interpret the laws that are passed.
Joe Gruder, chairman of the Republican National Committee, and thank you for coming on, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Get ready, Staten Island.
The Ferry Hawks are back at SIUH Community Park July 7th to the 12th for a 6-game series against the High Point Rockers. Tonight, first pitch is at 6:30. It's Thirsty Thursday with $5 Bud and Bud Light drafts. Friday, July 10th, first pitch is at 7 p.m. May the Force be with you on Star Wars Night with post-game kids glow around the bases with special lightsaber training packs.
Visit ferryhawks.com now to lock in your seats.
Looking for a protein shake that tastes as good as it performs? Meet Rockin' Protein Max. Packed with 50 grams of fuel, it'll help you keep up when your day won't slow down. And because it's always creamy and never chalky, every sip tastes great. Even better, it's lactose-free and has 0 added sugar. It's not every day you find a protein shake you actually want to finish. Catch Rockin' Protein in the dairy cooler at a store near you. Rockin' Protein and Shamrock Farms are registered trademarks of Shamrock Foods Company.
If you want all of your data in one place, you need the Intuit ERP. I'm Damon John, and I run my growing business on Intuit Enterprise Suite. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us today is Gordon Zhang, an expert on what's going on in the Far East, and a fellow at the Gatestone Institute. What is going on with China? What is going on with the Pacific? Gordon, give us an update. What the heck is going on?
The most important event this week was the China firing an intercontinental ballistic missile, either a JL-2 or a JL-3. They did this on Monday. It traveled across what's known as the first and second island chains, landed near Fiji. That's important because just within hours of the launch, Australia and Fiji signed a landmark defense agreement that the Chinese did not like. As people in the region said, this was the most provocative flight path the Chinese could have chosen. They gave very little notice, and they angered a lot of countries that once were their friends in the region. And by the way, this is a nuclear-capable missile, and it splashed down in the South Pacific nuclear-free zone, which is something that has gotten a lot of people's attention as well.
But China knows if they fire a missile that goes off, then it's World War III.
They do, but Xi Jinping right now is very arrogant. He doesn't respect the United States. He thinks we're in terminal decline. I believe that he's certainly wrong. I think a lot of Chinese officials think he's wrong, but he's the guy who is the most powerful in the regime right now. Also, he might be getting a little bit desperate. He has a Chinese economy that is not growing at the 5.0% pace that they reported for the first quarter of this year. It's probably not growing at all. We are seeing some very distressing signs out of China, and I'm sure that must be weighing on Xi Jinping because he's probably looking at a closing window of opportunity. And if that's the case, he can take us by surprise.
Yeah, are they supporting some of the stupidity that Iran is doing?
During the war, China was certainly supplying Iran with everything that it needed except for combat personnel. So, for instance, they were supplying targeting data through their satellites. And that targeting data was almost certainly used to kill 6 Americans on March 1st. Through the war, we saw these Chinese military cargo planes land in Iran, and the missiles that Iran was firing, including the ones firing at our Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, those were Chinese missiles, CM-302s. So China was all in. Since the last ceasefire, what we have been seeing is China pretty much on the sidelines. It has been urging both sides to adhere to the ceasefire, but that only helps Iran. So clearly Beijing is still on Tehran's side.
Russia's relationship with China, do they still distrust each other a little bit?
Well, they've always distrusted each other, but they've been very close partners. And this past week, we learned how close, where Apparently, the Chinese and the Russians were testing weapons, Chinese weapons that were using Ukraine as a battlefield. So that's been a close relationship. And again, China's been supplying everything Russia needs except combat personnel. But we also got to remember that there are Chinese mercenaries fighting for Russia in Ukraine, and those mercenaries could not have left China without the approval at the highest levels of the regime. And also, there are People's Liberation Army officers at the front in Ukraine. We assume that they're observers. They could also maybe be providing advice. But this is a very deep relationship.
Is North Korea relevant at all?
North Korea is relevant because, first of all, the North Koreans are supplying ballistic missiles, artillery shells, and soldiers to the Russians for the fight in Ukraine. And the last couple days, Kim Jong-un, the ruler, has been talking about accelerating and building up the North Korean arsenal, something which has been a constant theme. And so North Korea is certainly a factor. It is they have just launched their new destroyer. It's only one, but it does complicate our defense planning. And so North Korea is a threat. We know it's close to both Beijing and Moscow. And if there is war in East Asia, we have to assume that the Russians and the North Koreans will be supporting and fighting alongside the Chinese.
Anything else you want to tell all the American people?
In June, in early June, China started patrols east of Taiwan in the Pacific Ocean. And as a part of those patrols, Beijing has been issuing propaganda and essentially laying a sovereignty claim to waters of the Pacific Ocean. So it's not just the South China Sea anymore. China has continued those patrols to this day, which means that they're trying to close off the global commons. This is what Iran is trying to do in the Strait of Hormuz. The Chinese are now deciding that they can actually make a bigger claim. And in the last couple days, Beijing has been laying the legal groundwork for a claim of islands of the Philippines that are close to Taiwan. This is China enlarging its ambitions, and it's dangerous because at some point we're going to have to stop them. If we don't stop them, they're going to be claiming waters just off of Hawaii, and there's no telling where the Chinese will go. I talk about these developments as they occur on X at Gordon G. Chang, and I archive my articles for free on my website, which is at GORDONCHANG.com.
Well, Gordon Chang, thank you for filling in all our listeners, and let's catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, John.
The Cats Roundtable.
Calling in from Israel right now, we have the former Israeli ambassador, Michael Oren. Mr. Ambassador, what the heck is going on? Because a lot of the American people don't understand it.
Well, good to be with you, John. It's not easy to make heads or tails of this. But in general, the United States and Iran have signed this memorandum of understanding, which is simply proving to be inapplicable. Okay, and that the Iranians are violating it pretty much on a daily basis, and then the United States is responding to that. The big question is, will the situation escalate into a renewal of full-scale war between the United States and Iran? And if that happens, then Israel will also go on a full-scale war footing. It's interesting that the Iranians, in responding to America's counterstrikes to their initial offensive, have been sending missiles at American bases in Kuwait, Bahrain, other Middle Eastern countries. But they haven't dared to fire a rocket or a missile at Israel yet, because they know if they do, we're going to respond in a massive way.
But Israel is tough. But I guess President Trump is tough. But I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, President Trump doesn't want to do damage to the infrastructure because we're going to have to pay for it afterwards. And he wants to just hit them hard enough that they have some common sense. But it looks like the Iranians have no common sense, that the people that don't have common sense in Iran are running things.
I wouldn't call it common sense, not common sense. It's a Middle Eastern way of looking at things, which is very difficult, very different than the way things work in the West. And in the West, you want to win a war by, saying we destroyed the enemy and we put our flag over his fort. In the Middle East, all you have to do is prove that you didn't lose and you won. for the leadership in Iran, losing means not just losing their lives, but losing their families' lives, because 85% of their population hate them. And so if they lose the war, they lose everything. And so they really have, in that way, nothing to lose. They're just going to keep on goading the president. And they feel that that President Trump is so afraid of rising gas prices and so afraid of the impact of those rising gases on the Republican Party's chances of retaining both houses of Congress in the midterm elections, that they feel they can afford to provoke him to exceeding. America may strike back, but it's not going to go to all-out war again because of the president's fear of rising gas prices. And so they feel like I'm not making a bad joke here, John, but they have him over a barrel. That's what they feel. And the barrel happens to be a barrel of oil.
If they raise the price $3, $4, $5 a barrel, you know how much more money the OPEC nations make for those 3-4 days? A lot.
I'm sure they make a ton, but the American worker who for whom an increase of $1, $1.50 per gallon is a major expense. The American people don't understand fully why this war is necessary, why it's important for the security of their children and grandchildren. That sacrifice, that increase in gas prices, will be prohibitive.
So for the time being, what's going on with Lebanon, because the American people don't understand the Israel-Lebanon relationship with the Hezbollah.
Well, here's the good news. The good news is we've made peace with Lebanon. We're signing a peace treaty. And that peace treaty understands that Israel has to defend northern Galilee that's under fire from Hezbollah. And we have to do that, we have to maintain a military presence in southern Lebanon. That's not geared against the Lebanese. It's against Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a branch of Iran. It takes its orders directly from Iran. It gets its armaments directly from Iran. And it is the most powerful military force in Lebanon. The Lebanese army can't subdue Hezbollah. So it's a state within a state, an army within an army. It is dedicated to destroying my state, Israel, and also dedicated to fighting the United States. Hezbollah killed hundreds of American service people, diplomats. It is a bloodthirsty terrorist organization.
And Oman, we don't hear much from the Houthis. What the heck is going on there?
The Houthis are waiting to get their orders from Iran. All these people operate on orders from Iran. We call the head of the snake. And the minute if the Iranians feel that the United States moves to open the Strait of Hormuz, then they'll give an order to the Houthis to close the Strait of Mandab, which is another strategic strait along the Red Sea of Aden. And you'll see it happen.
So
watch it.
The bottom line is money. So if the Iranian Guard has the money, they pay Hezbollah, they pay the Houthis, they pay Hamas to be terrorists. Now, so that
you
means,
got that.
So if we cut out the money, is there any place that they're getting the money that we don't know about? Is there any double agents out there?
Oh, certainly. There's a whole international network. They just arrested, I think, a woman in New England who was running a fundraising operation for Palestinian Islamic Jihad. It's an ally of Hamas. Very extensive fundraising apparatus for these terrorist organizations, but not just that. They themselves are in the business of drug trafficking, human trafficking, vast drug business, huge. And Hezbollah is deeply in league with the major cartels in Central and South America.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Ambassador Michael Oren, he was the Israeli ambassador to the United States.
Take care, John. Be with you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. If you ever miss a segment or want to hear it again, go to WABCRadio.com, go to podcasts, go to minicast, and play back your favorite segment. With us, Senator Kennedy from Louisiana. Well, Senator, what's on your mind?
Well, I'm thinking about the work that we have to do in Washington when we start up again on Monday. I'm thinking about the midterm elections. I don't know, John, that we're going to get a lot done in Washington between now and the midterm elections because we're going to get virtually no cooperation from our Democratic colleagues. I hope I'm wrong in that. I'm concentrating on the Senate, re-election in the Senate. I'm spending all my time in the battleground states. I find fascinating the war going on within the Democratic Party. There is a wing of the Democratic Party. They are represented by Senator Sanders, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, Mayor Mamdani, Graham Plattner. These folks feel contempt for America when they should feel gratitude. They hate all millionaires. They want to kill all the millionaires. They want to open all the prisons. They want to open the border. They want to defund ICE. They want to defund the police. And every one of them know the words to the Cuban national anthem because they're socialists. Socialism has never worked. Any country that's tried it has ultimately rejected it. Cuba, Vietnam, China, USSR, Argentina before Malay, Venezuela. I could just go down the list. It didn't work there. It won't work in America. And I don't think the American people will embrace it. Now, what I just described is not all Democrats. That is the wing of the Democratic Party that I just described. And make no mistake about it, they are in control. And they will lead their party to defeat, in my opinion. Now, that you can say, well, what are you complaining about, Kennedy? You're a Republican. Well, yeah, I guess that's good for my party, but it's bad for my country.
And I don't understand what's going on in the Democratic Party themselves. I mean, there's a few Democrats have started to raise their heads. The Governor Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania,
yes,
and former Senator from West Virginia, Manchin.
Yeah, Joe Manchin.
Manchin. Is common sense gone in the Democratic Party, or are they going to rise up and squash these socialists?
Well, common sense has gone among the wing of the party.
Yeah.
Not all Democrats believe what they believe, but the Democrats who don't believe what they believe are keeping very, very quiet. And frankly, I don't know in the short term who's going to win that struggle. I just don't believe that the American people want to adopt socialism, open all the prisons, open the border, defund ICE, defund the police, and I don't believe they see Cuba as a model to use as a basis for constructing America. And maybe some Democrats do, and this is America, and that's their right. But I just don't believe they'll ever convince the majority of the American people, and if they keep trying, they'll lose.
Well, you know, if the Democratic Socialists ran on their own party of Democratic Socialism, they'd never get more than 2%, 3%, 4%. How can they con the entire Democratic Party that they're now the kings of the land? I
think the movement, the Mamdani, Ocasio-Cortez, Plattner movement is very strong, and the other Democrats are afraid of them, and they're trying to figure it all out, but they better hurry. Our plan for dealing with them is called Operation Let Them Speak. I mean, we all heard Mr. Plattner in Maine, and when you have a candidate, an opponent like that, you don't interfere with your opponent when he's kicking his own ass. And he's self-destructed. And many people, many Democrats, almost all Republicans said, look, if you want to go with this guy, knock yourself out. But it's not going to end well. And sure enough, it didn't end well.
Senator John Kennedy, thank you for your common sense. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you for having me.
The Cats Roundtable.
And with us today is Rob Steele, and he's one of the national committee men from Michigan. And Rob Steele, what's going on in Michigan and how they feel about our country and how they feel about what's going on in the world?
Yeah, so the RNC, we're entirely focused on giving Trump all the tools he needs to be successful in his last 2 years, you know, continuing abundant, cheap energy, a secure border, manufacturing jobs, law enforcement, prosecuting fraud, all the things that we want to have. You know, for Trump in the last couple of years, we need to have the Senate so he can appoint more judges. We see some of the crazy decisions that some of these judges make. And so we need a bigger group of judges appointed by Trump. And we know that he's endorsed a few candidates that kind of go against the insider Senate group. So there'll be a little more America First and will probably help us get the SAVE Act. And of course, we have to hold the House, and that's not easy in the midterm. I mean, many of your listeners know that the presidential party in power typically loses seats in the midterm, but your listeners should not give up and don't be woe is me about anything they hear in the media on national numbers, because the battle's in 25 districts. This is not a national election. Most of the districts aren't competitive in either direction, so we're going to be entirely focused on these districts that are in play. And so the RNC, everything they do with the president, it hinges on two things. When we look at it spending a dollar, does it turn out the vote and does it protect the ballot? And so in these battlegrounds, we have full election integrity staff and full political staff. And in fact, we're involved in over 135 lawsuits around the country in 35 states trying to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And of course, moving on to Michigan here, the Department of Justice.
Well, let me ask you one question. There's a big Democratic revolt going on with the socialists trying to attack the regular Democratic Party. What is the pulse of the Democrats around in Michigan? Or do you have migrants coming in trying to vote? Do you have common sense Democrats trying to maintain the status quo?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Democrats in Michigan are just like the Democrats everywhere. They've gone insane. We have a hardcore Democrat socialist wing of the Democrat Party in Michigan, and we have what, the media, well, how great would it be to be a Democrat, referred to as moderate Republicans or moderate Democrats who vote for open borders and all the crazy things they vote for, men and women's sports and all that. But the socialists in Michigan, at their recent Democrat state convention, they just nominated an attorney general candidate that wants to defund the police and have no cash bail. All the Jewish candidates were booed heavily when they were on stage. And one of the University of Michigan leader positions, called the University of Michigan Regent, there's been extreme pro-Palestinian, anti-Israeli protests there. And at the state convention, attorney Amir Maklid, who has posts praising Hamas leaders as martyrs and has represented the U of M pro-Palestinian protesters, defeated a very leftist.
Who's winning in the Democratic Party? Are the socialists moving in, or the common sense Democrats are retaining their control?
Well, this is what I'm trying to say. The Democrat state convention just nominated a socialist pro-Palestinian person who defeated a Jewish regent whose house was vandalized by Palestinian protesters. Their governor candidates, they have Abdul El-Sayed running for U.S. Senate. They have governor candidates that are leftists behind the scenes trying to keep the voter rolls dirty and fighting like crazy. So it's just like here. I mean, their Senate candidate has been endorsed by Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ro Khanna, all the typical things. And so it is exactly in Michigan, like it is in many places, where the Democrat socialists are making great progress against what people typically want to refer to as moderate Democrats.
Any gut feeling what's going to happen in November?
Well, I think we have 3 U.S. seats in the House of Representatives open, which are being contested by the DCCC, a great candidate, and U.S. 7 with an AOC Bernie candidate endorsed against him. He's Tom Barrett for Congress, an Army pilot. We have an open seat that they're spending a ton of money in, where we have a couple of good candidates, and, of course, our U.S. Senate seat. You've had Mike Rogers on, fabulous candidate, and his opponent has been endorsed by AOC and Bernie and Rashida, and wants Medicare for all, abolishing ICE, decreasing funding for the police. But we've got a citizen-only voting amendment coming onto the ballot in November, so we hope that motivates some people. We have data that suggests that true. So, Michigan is in play. It's crazy to think, but out of the last 132 years of U.S. senators in the state of Michigan, only 18 years out of the last 132 years have been Republican. So this open U.S. Senate seat is one of the key things. It's our greatest chance for a pickup here to help flip a seat from Democrat to Republican.
Rob Steele, we're out of time. Thank you for coming on. We'll catch up with you again real soon.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Colorado. With us today is Eric Grossman. He's the vice chairman of the Colorado GOP. Eric, what's going on overall in Colorado? How do people feel about what's going on in the country and the world?
Colorado specifically, we've been set up for failure. Going back to 2016, the establishment wing, Uniparty, got put forth a ballot measure that they convinced the electorate to vote in, which basically created an open primary. And what that did was it made party apparatuses irrelevant. The Democrat Party and the Republican Party now have to kowtow and placate to unaffiliated voters, and they now are the majority voting bloc and hold all the power. So during primary season, an unaffiliated voter will get mailed a Republican and a Democrat ballot, and they get to choose which one they return. And we've got it in court filings and in the public square, where even Republicans say that they have to care more about unaffiliated voters than Republicans in their own party. And so what that has essentially done is made the party so weak that you see what happened with the socialist candidate getting elected in Colorado, much like what you all are experiencing in New York. It has opened the door for unaffiliated voters to delve into a party apparatus that they should have no business participating in. Right now, these people are on offense. They see blood in the water, and they're attacking.
Now, how do they feel? How does it normal people, whether it's normal Democrats or normal Republicans or normal independents, feel about the big issue for President Trump and Congress right now, the voter ID situation?
The national polling says it. I think it's, 80-some percentile of citizens of this country definitely agree with voter ID. But there's a reason why it's being fought so hard, because of the chicanery and shenanigans behind the scenes and the power that those votes give them. It opens the door to cheating. And as the president has said, there's only one reason you don't want voter ID, and it's because you want to cheat. And the cheating is rampant. And it's the one reason why the majority of the electorate can't seem to get over the hump. And I think it's gotten to a point now where a lot of the unaffiliated voters, I think, and independents are getting so disenfranchised with the mess in government, but they're not educated enough politically to understand that they're being played for fools. And there's a reason why these things keep happening, is because the game is rigged.
What are the big races in Colorado that the American people should know about right now?
Well, we got an evenly split congressional delegation. Obviously, the president and we all would like to see the Republicans stay. But even, unfortunately, some of the Republicans are a little weak. And people want to be liked by the media. They want to be liked by their constituency. And sometimes you got to make hard decisions, which doesn't make you well liked. But when you worry more about what the media is going to say about you than voting your principles, you end up with the situations we have now at the national electorate level, where you don't have principled people standing up for principled things like voter ID. They want to placate to these cheating scenarios. Because I think at the end of the day, it helps them once they get into the hen house that is east of the Mississippi, which is Washington, D.C.
Which is the major race that you're worried about or feel good about? One of each.
The governor's race is tight. It looks to me like they're going to have to do a recount because the percentage is so low. It's under a half a percentage point. Very hotly contested race. And I would say,
give us the people that are running.
You've got Barbara Kirkmeyer and Victor Marks, and they're the two front runners that are neck and neck. But as has happened on many national races, including California, where Barbara Kirkmeyer was winning, at the night of the polls closing, and then by the time people woke up the next day, all of a sudden the other candidate pulled ahead. And so when you see that happening in so many different races across the country, it doesn't give trust in the process. And that's kind of one of the problems we have here is all these things going back all the way to Tina Peters have sort of given a distaste in the mouth of the electorates where I don't feel like they completely trust the outcome. But so worry and concern on that level, because that's a big race here.
Well, thank you for coming on, and maybe we'll talk again in the near future to give us any updates.
Pleasure to be on with you, sir.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. We'll be right back right after this break.
Need a laptop that's built to perform and designed to last all day? Select Windows 11 PCs starting at $499.99 are now at Best Buy. Learn more at bestbuy.com. Best Buy. Imagine that.
Welcome back to the Cats Roundtable. With us is Dr. Peter Michalos. And Dr. Peter, what's today's advice?
So today, John, we're going to talk about longevity and DNA damage and what we can do to help protect our DNA and the new exciting research that is actually restoring DNA and DNA damage. And what happens is that our DNA repair mechanism is constantly in action and it's working. And I always remember when at our church out in the Hamptons, when we gave the 90th birthday party for Dr. Watson, he said that anti-aging will come down to lifestyle and figuring out how to repair our DNA and enhance our DNA repair mechanism, which is what he had told me. And it turns out that DNA gets damaged by things like sunlight. And as we get older, that's why skin starts to age in the sun, because it's harder for it to repair. It gets damaged by smoking because that makes changes to what's called the epigenome of our cells. Alcohol damages it, certain pesticides, chemicals, and even solar radiation. When we have peak solar flare activity, it affects our DNA. And what we find is that this younger version or younger program of our cells exists within our cells. And a doctor named Yamanaka found out that we each have a younger copy of our software. And then a fellow at Harvard in David Sinclair's lab, Wan-Chen Liu, in 2020 published the research where they reversed blindness in mice, and then they went on to do apes. And something very exciting happened on June 9th, and the medicine is called ER100, and it was injected into a human on June 9th with damage in the eye from glaucoma. And everyone in the world now is waiting to hear the results of that research. And it's like basically telling the body to recover a lost file in a computer to get back the younger version of our youthful selves, because aging is a degenerate.
That is phenomenal. You think that we're close to finding a solution to our Creator, the gene that He created for us to turn off at the age of 95 or 100?
Yeah, it's not just one gene. It's basically the whole process of being able to repair. And they actually gave it at Stanford University to wild mice, and they lived to be 109% longer, which was 200 extra days, which was the equivalent of 34 human years. So this is an amazing thing that's happening. All cells have a life cycle: the feeding, the growth, the replication, and the death. The idea is to prolong that period after our cells replicate, that they last longer, so we'll have more health span, and our period of morbidity, instead of being sick for 10 years with Alzheimer's, heart problems, diabetes, our period of sickness will only be a few months, so we could still try to make it that full 120 years that it seems that is programmed into our longevity. And the human body, there's one organ that actually can regrow itself. You can remove 80% of someone's liver and it'll grow back, just like a starfish. If you've got a leg open, it'll grow back. We do have an organ in our body, and scientists are trying to figure out why the liver is able to do that, but why not the nervous system? Why not the kidney? Why not the brain? So this area of research is growing, but it's really amazing that with this new technology that is happening at Life Biosciences and also Jeff Bezos' company, Altos Labs in California, I have no proprietary interest in any of this, but if they figure out how to safely do it in humans to get cells to go back to a younger age, the trick is not to make them go back too young, because that becomes a cancer cell. So this is called partial reprogramming, and I think it's in our future, and it's a very exciting time. But meanwhile, watch out for the sun, alcohol, smoking, fatty diet, avoid
sugar and
oil,
salt.
Sugar, salt, these are all the things.
Let me ask one more important question. to keep us alive, and hopefully the last thing that goes is the brain, what essential body parts need to work properly? It's the liver, it's the
heart.
The heart.
Right. Blood pressure. Our blood vessels are actually like an organ because they're lined with muscles. When they get too narrow because the blood pressure is too high, then they don't feed the brain properly. And, of course, like you mentioned before, the sugar. They even think that Alzheimer's is a form of type 3 diabetes where the cells in the brain get insulin resistance and you can't feed the brain cells properly. And then you start picking up the waste material, the amyloid plaques that they talk about in Alzheimer's.
Live long and prosper and have a great summer weekend.
Thank you, John, for always getting the truth out on the Cats Roundtable.
The Cats Roundtable.
With us today is Lynn Shaw, linswarriors.org. Well, Lynn Shaw, please tell us.
Thank you, John. There's a newly released report which comes out yearly from the National Center on Missing and Exploited Children in D.C., and they just released their 2025 report, and it paints a sobering picture of the online threats facing children today, and it serves, John, as a wake-up call for everyone, for parents, educators, our lawmakers, and technology companies. More than 1.4 million reports of online enticement. And we're talking about right here, just in the United States. More than 50,000 reports of financial sextortion. More than 113,000 reports involving child sex trafficking and exploitation. And listen to this. This is a 158% overall increase from the last report in 2024 and a 323% increase in child sex trafficking reports. I mean, what is going on here, John? And this is what we know about. Remember, these numbers, a lot of people don't report things, so the numbers are always a lot higher. Remember, these are not, statistics. We're talking about children here, American kids. So, as we always discuss, the Internet has become this playground, classroom and social center for an entire generation, but it's become this hunting ground for predators and the scammers and all these criminals who are running around who understand technology much better than most parents. But here's the good news. We need our communities in America to stand together and rally and say we can come together and protect kids. There's a website called cybertipline.org, and that's where you would make the report. But what stands out, I have to reiterate this, is the scale, the sheer number of reports involving online enticement shows this is no longer as just, some small issue we can close the door and hide behind, John. It's affecting families all over America. Nobody's exempt from any of this.
Now, Lynn, you were in the White House the week before, and you felt you were making progress. Is that all dependent on the next time they vote in Congress?
We were talking about the Kids Online Safety Act, which I just learned a few minutes ago is coming up for what they call a markup on July 12th in the Senate. In the House, they created some bill, John, I call it a piece of toilet paper, the Kids Act. They took our nice piece of legislation, they took out all the words that mean something, but now it's back in the hands of the Senate, and that's what we want. So the Senate, we have a chance right now on July 12th when they mark it up, that they go back to our original words, our duty of care, our preemption language, all this stuff we've been 4.5 years fighting for, and in the Senate, put all that back in for child safety. So I'm feeling very optimistic, and then it goes to the president's desk for signature. So this is a good thing that's happening. And again, we just learned about this, recently. But I want America to understand, John, what's happening here with this online enticement of our kids. And our Kids Online Safety Act feeds all into that, because what it would do if, whether it's X or whether it's Facebook or Instagram, if on their end, holding big tech accountable, they see this enticement, they see this language, they see these nude images, it's up to them to do everything in their power, big tech, to take it down, to do something with it. It's just this free-for-all right now of, that runaway train. There is no regulation with big tech, something I repeat over and over again, which is amazing. It's the only business we know of. There's no regulation. But we've got criminals out there convincing kids to send, explicit images.
And do you have a list of those congressmen or whoever changed those things to make it easier for those companies?
Yeah, of course I have a list. And remember,
don't forget what we did last time. We put a whole page in the New York Post.
Which Washington saw. This is the truth, what's happening, what we talk about every week. And that's what we have to continue doing. But we have to keep sounding the alarm, 24/7, 7 days a week, about what the public can do. The public has to get involved. So this piece of legislation right now, Kids Online Safety Act, Senate Version 1748, I am hoping and praying when they mark it up in the next couple of days that, we will find this language back in the bill, because all hell's going to break loose if it's not put back to this original version that was written and co-sponsored by Senator Marsha Blackburn and Senator Richard Blumenthal. Because our president, if I have to stand in that Oval Office and bar him from that pen, that Sharpie, he cannot sign a piece of legislation, John, that is anything less than a piece that says big tech has a duty of care. We have to have now some sort of regulation. We don't, we're pro-innovation, pro-technology. We don't even want all this government in our lives, but we've come to a point. Did you hear what I just told you?
Yes.
Over 300% enticement of child sex trafficking online in 1 year. I can't imagine what next year's report will be.
Lynn Shaw, thank you so much for coming on, and let's stay informed.
Thank you, John. Lynn'sWarriors.org.
Thank you for listening to the Cats Roundtable. Every Sunday morning, we'll bring you the latest in what's happening in our community, our country, and the world. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Have a nice Sunday.